Hello everyone and welcome back to the Calvin Tobin Show. I am your host, Calvin Tobin. Today we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. All right, the March Madness tournament continues to show its madness, and now we are at the Sweet 16 round. And in the Sweet 16, it's all good to go, as it will be starting this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, here's what happened in the round of 32. In the round of 32, in the year of the upset, the Cinderella story for the Princeton Tigers continues on as they just beat the number 7 seed Missouri Tigers, and they will be moving on to the Sweet 16 to face the Creighton Blue Jays this Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Then we got the Kansas Jayhawks, who are now the second number 1 seed in this tournament, to already be knocked out, and we haven't even started the Sweet 16 round yet, and leaving the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Houston Cougars to be the last 2 number 1 seeds left in this tournament. And as well with the Kansas State Wildcats, they're still continuing to prove the doubters wrong, because at the beginning of this season, they were unranked, even in the preseason poll, and they worked themselves up all the way this season to get up and all the way up until the the 15th ranked team in the country, and now they are going on to the Sweet 16 to face the Michigan State Spartans. Now, also, what happened in the round of 32? Of the 16 games that happened, there were 5 upsets that happened. And the upsets were Creighton beat Baylor, Miami beat Indiana, Michigan State beat Marquette, Arkansas beat Kansas, and the biggest upset of them all is Princeton beating Missouri. And with Princeton's performance in beating Missouri, it wasn't just surprising that Missouri is the 15th seed and then that they beat a number 7 seed moving on to the Sweet 16. It's the fact that they beat Missouri soundly, and how they did this was keeping their game at their own tempo, which was sharing the ball and not turning the ball over, and they did this while giving Missouri no chance to score, keeping the Tigers inefficient and stale throughout the entire game. And that's what helped the Princeton Tigers sustain their lead throughout the entire game, while also at one point leading the Missouri Tigers by 20 points. And now they're going on to the Sweet 16. But you know who's not going on to the Sweet 16? Is the Kansas Jayhawks, in a game that they should have won, but they got beat by the Arkansas Razorbacks in a huge comeback win, 72-71. Kansas was in control most of this game, keeping the game at their tempo, and they didn't lose the lead for the entire game except for the final minutes of this game. Arkansas didn't have their first lead of the game until there was 50 seconds left in this game, and Kansas was up by 8 to 10 points or 5 to 10 points most of this game. But Arkansas's defense stepped up when they needed to, and especially in the final 4 minutes, because in the final 4 minutes of this game, they didn't allow a single point but 1 point by Kansas, and that's what really helped them win this game. And while the Arkansas Razorbacks were not allowing the Kansas Jayhawks to score a single point, their guy, Ricky Council, scored 11 of the Razorbacks' final 13 points and helping the Razorbacks get the 72-71 victory. Now, the Sweet 16 starts this Thursday night. It's a couple days away. It starts Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Times, and there are 8 total games to be played. There are 4 on Thursday and 4 on Friday. The first game that starts at 6:30 on Thursday will be Michigan State playing Kansas State, and then the first game starting on Friday will be the Alabama Crimson Tide playing San Diego State. And both of these games, if you want to know where to watch them, these games will be both on TBS. Now, while the craziness of March Madness is going on, the NBA has had a few players of the last few days go off for themselves. And what happened is DeMar DeRozan went out for 49 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves on Friday. Then we had Devin Booker go off for 46 points a couple of days ago in a losing effort to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then Julius Randle played the game of his life, dropping 57 points last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, getting 57 points, 4 rebounds in 36 minutes on 65% shooting. But in this game, it was mostly Minnesota versus Julius Randle. And unfortunately, the New York Knicks ended up losing this game to the Minnesota Timberwolves in a losing fashion, 140 to 134. So all those 57 points meant nothing. Julius Randle went off and it was all for nothing. But here's the thing. In 3/4 of this game, it was all Minnesota because Minnesota was constantly going on scoring runs, making their lead bigger and bigger as the game went on. And the New York Knicks, they couldn't find a way to get within striking distance of being able to take their own lead. But that happened eventually because through these first 3/4 of the game, part of those scoring runs, their biggest run that Minnesota went on was going on a 22-7 run, and that was part of why Minnesota was caught walking right through the New York Knicks. But the second half of this game was where the New York Knicks game really started to get going. But here's the thing. The odd thing about what happened in this game is for how high scoring Minnesota's offensive game was, hitting 61% of their shots. Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns weren't in this game, but they still had a guy score 30 points in this game, and he's not a normal dude. Now, the name we're used to seeing, and his name is Taurean Prince, and he scored 35 points, leading the Minnesota Timberwolves in scoring, and scoring those 35 points on 92% shooting. Now, with the New York Knicks second half, this is where their game really started to get going because Julius Randle was where he came back personally just for the Knicks himself, because in the third quarter, the Knicks ended up depleting a continuous 10 to 15 point deficit, and thanks to Julius Randle, he went off for 26 points in that third quarter, which ended up helping the New York Knicks completely diminish the lead that they had under Minnesota, and eventually gave them the lead as well. But at the very end, the New York Knicks started to fall apart because they started to turn the ball over. They started to get really inefficient on scoring the basket. And at one point in the final minutes of the game, they had to force foul, which gave the Minnesota Timberwolves more scoring opportunities, which then eventually gave Minnesota the victory of this game, beating the New York Knicks 140 to 134. And because of Minnesota winning this game, they now have 20 home wins on the season, giving them a home record of 20-17. All right, that's the end of the Calvin Tobin Show. Please subscribe to my channel at Calvin Tobin Show so you don't miss out on any sports media. And please follow me on Instagram at Calvin Tobin Show so you don't miss out on any sports news whatsoever.